Everybody loves Goku. But this spiky-haired simpleton isn't what he seems, because buried in his past is the murder of a child. This little boy deserves to be remembered and celebrated. So let's examine the life and death of Gogo Ackman and see how Goku caused his untimely end. In 1993, manga artist Akira Toriyama appeared to be at the top of his game. He was writing what would become the final saga of the Dragon Ball Z manga, and would soon begin design work for multiple video games set to release in 1994. Having helped craft the visual identity of Dragon Quest I back in 1986, Toriyama was now on the verge of dominating the gaming industry. In '94, when Shueisha would release the promotional video for the V-Fest Gaming Expo, 5 of the 7 games highlighted would feature designs crafted by Toriyama. We'll talk about those games later in this video. But now, in 1993, Toriyama faced hidden challenges. As Dragon Ball approached the Buu saga, the artist had intended to allow the then-dead Goku to rest in peace, propping up his son Gohan as the new hero of the manga. After a time jump following the Cell saga, Dragon Ball Chapter 421 focuses on Gohan, now in high school, and in Chapter 423, Gohan dons a mask, taking on the superhero identity of the Great Saiyaman. But the manga's focus on Gohan wouldn't last. Before long, the plans were changed, and Goku re-entered the spotlight. In later interviews, Toriyama would allude to this being his own decision. But to this day, many fans remain skeptical, believing the true cause of Goku's return to be editorial pressure. Within the pages of 1993 Dragon Ball, some fans have found what they interpret as evidence of Toriyama's discontent. In its summary of that year, the Dragon Ball fan site Kazenshu ends with the statement, "Greater danger may be the author's own lack of enthusiasm, with sloppier art and reduced chapter page counts." This was the state of Dragon Ball when Akira Toriyama premiered Gogo Ackman in July of 1993, a manga that, sadly, would come to an end after only 11 chapters. Let's examine the story of Ackman before talking about some of the challenges that interrupted it and eventually killed it. Chapter 1 of the series introduces Ackman, a young boy who has just awoken from a 50-year nap. His parents tell him that since today is his 200th birthday, it's time for him to act like an adult and collect souls to trade to the Demon King for money. But Ackman has a problem. Modern women are too hot, and it distracts him from stealing souls. In Chapter 3, this comedic pattern is disrupted when Toriyama introduces Ackman's rival, an angel who tries to stop him from collecting souls, but accidentally kills bystanders in the process. Of course, Ackman, who still hasn't done any killing himself, gathers the spirits of Angel's victims and makes so much money trading them to the Demon Lord that he shows up at the beginning of Chapter 4 in a new car. For fans who appreciate Toriyama's comedy, Gogo Ackman is a welcome respite from later Dragon Ball. You can find a link to the English edition of the manga in the description of this video. Unfortunately for those of us who prefer Toriyama's comedy, Dragon Ball would ultimately remain his focus. At first, Toriyama worked on both titles simultaneously. While Dragon Ball ran in Weekly Shonen Jump, Ackman was serialized in V-Jump, a sister magazine that ran monthly. But as the calendar turned to 1994, Ackman would appear in just one issue of V-Jump before disappearing for the next 5 months. Dragon Ball would continue over this period, and some fans have noted the increase in comedic moments that Toriyama injected into this part of the Buu saga. When Ackman finally returned in July of 1994, he had an alien encounter of his own. In Chapter 8, he offers to team up with Martians to eliminate humanity, but the invaders disrespect him, causing him to slice one in half and kill the other with a single kick. The chapter ends with Ackman frustrated that by making him their enemy, the aliens forced him to save the world. Clearly, despite his resemblance to Trunks, Ackman has no love for humans. So if you're looking for a Trunks plushie to cuddle up with, or any other Dragon Ball merch, you should check out the link in this video's description. Ackman would see just 3 more chapters before his disappearance. In Chapter 9, Toriyama finally reveals the Demon King and introduces his #1 soul collector, an older girl who Ackman asks to marry him. And in Chapter 10, Ackman faces the newly buff Angel, who has gone through a training montage to achieve a Dragon Ball Z-like body. But the muscles mean nothing to Ackman, who simply pulls out a gun and lets a shot fly. It's a fantastic instance of Toriyama parodizing Dragon Ball. The series ends in Chapter 11, but I won't spoil it. Let's briefly take a look at Ackman's legacy beyond the manga. But first, if you're enjoying this video, click the subscribe button so you can see more like it. Although Go-Go Ackman was short-lived, it's better known, especially by retro gaming fans, for the Super Famicom games that it inspired. They are remembered today as hidden gems of the platforming genre. However, many elements of their stories are not present in Toriyama's manga. One remnant of the series that is lesser known in the English-speaking world is the 15-minute original video animation that was included on the tape for V-Fest 94. The Ackman OVA beautifully adapts the first few chapters of the manga, and for those who understand Japanese, it's worth watching in addition to reading the source material. But with Ackman having such an outsized influence in relation to its chapter count, you might be wondering, what was Toriyama doing during his 5-month hiatus that prevented him from giving us more? Well, as stated earlier, 5 of the 7 games on the promotional tape for V-Fest 94 have designs from Toriyama. One of those is Go-Go Ackman's first game, and another is based on Dragon Ball. Since those 2 games are based on Toriyama's manga, the designs in them existed, in some form, before production of the games began. But the other 3 projects required new designs, and therefore, Toriyama's time. Those projects were Gulliver, which Toriyama contributed to in the form of mecha design, Dragon Quest VI, which he worked on as a character designer, and Chrono Trigger, which he also created character designs for. Chrono Trigger, of course, would later be remembered as one of the greatest RPGs of all time. It's not a stretch of the imagination to think that the combination of these responsibilities and the ramping up of the Buu saga could be responsible for Toriyama's 5-month hiatus from Ackman. But perhaps a more important question is, why did he end Ackman just 1 month after that year's V-Fest? Well, in the Japanese edition of Akira Toriyama's manga theater, Toriyama is quoted saying that he enjoyed working on Ackman, and that he cut it short before it could stop being fun. Given what we know about his attempts to end Dragon Ball or take it in a different direction, it's likely that his fear of losing passion for Ackman was due to his experience with his flagship manga. In addition, Goku has monopolized Toriyama's time and energy, and that especially has caused us to miss out on more gags from a master of comedy. In the spring of the next year, Toriyama ended Dragon Ball after 519 chapters, and then he took a much-deserved rest.